it was a caravan of cars towing cars, not trucks. And so it was just like throwing me off my game, and I was just trying to figure out what's going on. And then this car like stopped right next to me, and they couldn't see me. My truck at the time had tinted windows, and I was like reclined back, but I was kind of sketched out. I had my pistol, and I just pulled it onto the dashboard, and like, all right, I don't know what's gonna happen. This car was scoping me out. I could feel like they were just assessing my vehicle and what was going on with that. And my brain played tricks on me. I don't know what the truth is, but I thought it was like Mexico's just right there. Maybe it's, the cartel coming in and
Yeah.
just moving vehicles across the border.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wondering Where the Lions Are. I'm your host, Brandon Lawrence, and I'm excited to have you tuning in. I'm a man who has undergone many different phases of evolution and change in my life. From growing out of low self-esteem, to finding my truth in who I am, and finding the courage to take the ultimate steps to embodying and living that highest personal truth. I am passionate about spiritual evolution and growth, and want to help foster more of that in the world. This podcast is aimed mostly towards helping men abandon the dysfunctional and limiting paradigms of typical ideas around masculinity, while honoring and exalting the greatest attributes of it. My goal is to have powerful conversations with many different types of men from many different backgrounds. We'll be talking about healing, trauma, courage, authenticity, business, adversity, confidence, insecurity, love, lust, and many more. We will be getting raw and vulnerable sometimes, and don't seek to run away from our emotions, like we men struggle often to do. Rather, we want to allow others to become more authentic and in touch with themselves, in order to help the world heal and grow by exalting masculinity to its highest and truest nature, the royalty of a lion.
Well, welcome back, Zach. Well, you're my first time on the guest on my show. Wondering where the lions are. Welcome back, everyone else. My good friend here, Zach Stevens. I met him. Wow, it's been almost 5 months now.
Yeah,
Yeah, we met at a retreat. Hosted, partly hosted by your now wife. Just kind of focusing on breaking through the barriers of the inner critic, kind of stepping into our full truest nature. Um, so anyway, I chose Zach as my next guest on my show because he is a spiritually tapped in dude, um, a very cool guy, and just someone that I wanted to go a little bit deeper with. Um, we had a conversation in the sauna that was pretty cool. Back on the retreat, and yeah, your background story is pretty inspiring, actually. And that's the main thing I want to get into today is your a little bit of your story. The overall kind of theme with this podcast is helping men kind of get into, you could say, spirituality, but it's more so just the nature of life and asking the hard questions, right? And seeking and being, again, conscious, which is, a very vague term, but just kind of alluding to, you know, how can we move forward in this world in a positive direction, make change, uh, tap into our inner courage, our inner authenticity, and yeah, just live to the fullest expression that we can. So, with that
yeah.
said, having said all that, yeah, I guess I've been doing this with every guest, so just kind of going from the beginning because that makes sense. Um, so right now it seems that you are, and you've described this as a kind of spiritually tapped in and very conscious and aware and devoted to your growth and all, but was that, I guess, where was the starting point in your journey on that kind of, what is that kind of critical nexus point where you decided to start seeking more? Um, and I guess you can kind of just start with your background on your early life and kind of go from there. However you feel called to share. The mic is all yours.
Absolutely. Yeah. First off, thank you for having me on. I'm excited to watch your show progress. And hello to the audience. Yeah, we met and had a great conversation, and I'm glad that you reached out to me so we could kind of continue that and move forward. Looking back, I've always been spiritual. I grew up kind of in a Christian household. My family, they're very grounded. We didn't necessarily like consistently go to church, but we were always seeking some type of belief system. We had a strong belief system. We're always just seeking like ways to tap into that faith and that spiritual mindset. And like any other family, I think, you know, life gets a hold of us. And so we were in and out, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And, but that was the start of, you know, me trying to see what further, like, what else is out there other than just what's in front of us. So growing up with that Christian-based faith, going to church and then kind of falling out and then moving back into that over the years, all the way up to probably like my 20s. Just various chapters where I would go back into the churches and try and find teachable moments, just go sit down and like listen to the sermon. And I started developing a mindset where I wasn't necessarily classifying myself as a Christian, but I knew that there were good lessons to be learned there. So I'd go in, I would listen to the message, and I would interpret it for however it made sense to me and my life at that time. And it seemed to be working for me. I always had moments where I felt that, you know, I always had, you know, hand on my shoulder, God was with me. And in times of doubt, there was always like a message that I could find to still have a strong faith that that belief system was true. And then I moved around a little bit in Texas. And then I finally made the jump to California. And that was when I truly asserted my independence and knew that I could no longer fall back on my family. Like I had to be on my own. I had to focus on achieving. And I was either going to sink or I was going to swim. And I decided I wanted to grow wings and fly. So I just kept pushing for more, knowing that no matter what, I was willing to sacrifice anything I needed to, as far as like materialistic stuff goes, not my values or, you know, my friends or anything like that. But I lived out of my truck for a little bit. Then I started living in my gym. So as far as like financial stuff, in order to move forward in my mission, I just started making those small sacrifices and being alone with myself a lot too. And I think just through all that, it gave me space to look for more messages and more signs that something else was out there, like guiding me, that, you know, I was destined to come to California and it was part of my purpose. There was a community here that needed me. And I truly believe that, you know, I stepped into that fully prepared to take on the role that I took on. And that was by God's power and privilege. But this is dating back 4 years ago. And even then, I probably didn't fully understand it until I started dating Kaylee. And Kaylee's the one that hosted the retreat. I mean, I know you know this. This is for your audience. She was my girlfriend at the time, and the retreat was it was a spiritual retreat where we went to Mount Shasta and focused on like the meditation and just like tapping into, you know, the mountain and the powers that it had. And then her partner, JP, was kind of leading the transcendence healing side of it. And all these were just like little workshops and just stepping stones to get us to a strong mindset, to be open to, you know, the idea of what is. So while yes, I've been a spiritual guy for pretty much my whole life, I don't think it was, I believe that it's like very recent that I transitioned my way of thinking. My belief system's still the same, but my way of thinking of like who is God and what is the God within is still developing. I'm still learning about that. And that workshop, that retreat that we did was a big stepping stone for me. And it's really allowed me to tap in to just learning how to build a relationship through meditation and clearing my mind. and understanding like, there's just so much that we don't know. And so I just tell myself, don't even try to know, just be and, and accept for what you're feeling is true. So I just stick to like the God within me is here. I know that I have these angels that kind of guide me through, and it just gives me full confidence in anything that I do and face. And I know that I'll come out on top because I've had a lot of scenarios where I've done that.
Awesome. Awesome. There's a lot to say about that. Yeah, I can resonate with the sentiment of kind of one foot in, one foot out for of time because life happens and you kind of get thrown for a loop with life. Until then, the spiritual seeking becomes, you could say, more intense, more interpersonal, um, and more of a priority, I guess, has been my experience. And it seems like that's kind of resonates true for you with what you just said. And yeah, that's very brave of you to kind of, and it's also inspiring too, to, you left your old life in Texas. You knew you were gonna, maybe didn't have it crystallized on what exactly it was that called you to California. Um, but you just took that leap of faith, which I resonate with too, because I took a leap of faith, moved out here to Colorado. Um, had had my reasons that I could kind of tell people, oh yeah, I want to do this, like mountain biking, the outdoors. I want to get a different perspective. But there was unknown reasons that just kind of drew me to hear that is unfolding now more and more. So I'm curious to go a little bit deeper into that. What exactly was your intuition showing you that was calling you towards California?
Yeah. Well, the stepping stones that got me there was I spent pretty much, I think, about 25 years on the north side of Houston,
Mm.
where I was very comfortable. I was not too far from home and I had a good thing going. And then one day I jumped to the south side. And that was like a small like leap. And I was there for 2 years. It's about 60 miles from home. So still not super far, but far enough to like build some confidence and just not that I was like seeking to build that, it just happened naturally. And then
Yeah.
after that 2 year mark, I just felt called to like making a giant leap. And I didn't know where it was going to be. Like I could have just thrown a dart at the board and maybe it would have landed in Colorado. I don't know. I truly believe it was like meant to be because I was in between starting up my gymnastics facility in Texas as a mobile gym, and I was just going to go to daycares and everything just to kind of build my name, um, and searching for a job at the same time. And the weirdest thing happened. Um, Someone that I didn't even know I was friends with on Facebook posted a job opportunity in California for men's gymnastics. And I don't think we had ever interacted outside of Facebook, or even on Facebook, but he was a friend of mine somehow. And I saw that posting and decided that I wanted to apply. And so they flew me out. I checked out the gym and everything just kind of happened really fast. I no longer was seeking to build my gym or my mobile practice in Texas, and I was headed to California, and everything just kind of put a pause on where I was at, and I just stepped over here, and I was like, okay, I'm going to just try this path out for a while, and yeah, so it brought me out to California that way, and I just loaded my truck up, rented a U-Haul, loaded my dog up, and I made the drive in I think 32 hours, which is it's like a 28-hour drive road
Uh,
time. Usually most people would take 3 days to do it. I was just like ready, let's
Locked in.
go, locked in, very enthusiastic and excited for the next chapter and what it was going to bring me.
Wow. So you didn't take any stops. I mean, obviously you stopped to like go to the bathroom and stuff, but like you just went straight from Texas to
So
Cali.
funny story, actually, I was like being pretty aware. Like I was ready to just go, and I was planning on stopping in Phoenix, and I
Uh-huh.
did. But so I was like filling up my gas tank every half a tank, and about 20 hours of driving, I think I was just like getting fatigued and like ready to go. I was like, okay, I'm almost to Phoenix. I just got to get there. I'll sleep, and then I'll wake up and finish the next drive, which from Phoenix to Northern California, where I'm at, I think it's about 12 hours. And so that was the plan. And then I'm on this long strip of road, and Arizona is like mostly desert. So like some of the highways just like, all right, nothing's going on. And just let's go.
I've done a drive through Arizona. It's a little sketchy because you're like, all right, if something goes wrong now, I have no plan.
Yeah.
I have no service, no gas, no one's in sight. It's hot.
And that's what happened. Yeah. And it was midnight, and I was on the road, and I looked at my gas tank, and I was like, oh shit, I have no gas. Like, I don't know how I missed it because I was just so on it all the way up to that trip, to that point. And so I was like thinking, okay, I gotta find a gas station. Where's that? Where's one at? Like, okay, oh shit, a lot of them are closed and the pumps are closed, shut off. Um, and I finally found one that I thought was open. I pulled in, and sure enough, that pump was shut off too. And I had no more gas to make it to Phoenix. That's probably like 20 miles from Phoenix, but I didn't want to chance it. And so I just decided that I was going to sleep at the gas station. So I just reclined back, and just as time passed, I was just getting more comfortable into that setting. And then all of a sudden, these cars just pull in, and these cars are like towing other cars. And I'm just thinking, okay, what's going on here? Don't they know that there's no gas station open right now? Because I just learned that. But the weird thing was, it was like 13, it was a caravan of cars towing cars, not trucks. And so it was just like throwing me off my game. And I was just trying to figure out what's going on. And then this car like stopped right next to me, and they couldn't see me. My truck at the time had tinted windows, and I was like reclined back, but I was kind of sketched out. I had my pistol, and I just pulled it onto the dashboard, and like, all right, I don't know what's gonna happen. This car was scoping me out. I could feel like they were just assessing my vehicle and what was going on with that. And my brain played tricks on me. I don't know what the truth is, but I thought it was like Mexico's just right there. Maybe it's, the cartel coming in and
Yeah.
just moving vehicles across the border. I have no clue. It's probably just my brain ego like playing tricks. But luckily, another truck pulled in with a family and a four-wheeler in the back. And like, we're trying to get gas. I rolled down my window. I was like, hey, there's no gas right now. I think it opens up at like 6 a.m. or whatever. Long story short, that family ended up going to Phoenix to get gas and came back and brought me gas. And
Wow.
so like I had enough gas now to get to my hotel, but I was still just in a very like sketched out mindset. Then once I got to the hotel, I slept for maybe 2 hours, and then woke up thinking that I got followed to the hotel, and I was like, I'm just going. So I
Yeah.
hopped back on the road and just finished the drive from there.
That's a funny story for sure. Yeah. Driving, well, props to you because I drove from New York to Colorado, and that's about a 32-hour total drive. So same as you, but I took a lot of breaks, which maybe was actually worse in hindsight because like by the fourth day I was so ready to to be to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll never do that again.
No, I made the vow never to do again too. I was like,
Yeah.
if I move somewhere else, I will. Like, the thing is, I have my bikes, so I just didn't trust. I mean, first of all, it's like a lot of money to ship it out via plane or whatever. So I was like, yeah, I'll just drive out and put them on my bike rack, and yeah, no, never again.
Yeah. There's the ego putting things in our head,
Yeah.
trying to stop us from staying comfortable or whatever. I don't know. But I've made the trip one other time, and I took 7 days to do it. It was beautiful. I actually stopped in Colorado, Utah, and Nevada. Tried stopping in New Mexico, but they were shut down because it was COVID.
Mm.
Like New Mexico was like a hard stop. Like you
Really?
couldn't go to any of their national forests or anything like that.
Wow.
As far as Utah and Colorado, it was like pretty slow, not much activity, but I was able to park on the side of the road and like kind of walk the parks. Um, so that was a 7 day trip and completely different timeline, but I was so happy that I took the time to actually enjoy the ride.
Yeah, I feel that because all those places, Utah, Colorado, I mean, it's just awesome to take a road trip and just drive out there and to be out there. Um, but when you're rushing you're just miserable in the car. If you
And you
take the
miss it.
time, it's an amazing scene, unlike
Yeah,
anything else from where
you
I'm
miss the
from.
beauty. Yeah, well, in Utah, it's just, I never thought that I was going to see that much beauty when I drove through Utah.
Oh, it's
It's
amazing.
underrated for sure.
1000%. Wow. Yeah, so I mean, basically what it comes down to is you're very tapped into intuition. Um, and that's a hard thing for both men and women, in this kind of hyper rational, Newtonian based society, right? And hearing these stories and talking about these things helps us break through that barrier. I mean, you're very tapped into like, yep, I feel this in my body. I don't know. Can't really can't really explain rationally or logically why, but I just know deep within me that yeah, this is the next step. An opportunity presented itself to you. Everything lined up perfectly. Boom, boom, boom. It was like, I've had a couple of situations like that in my life, and I look back at it, and it was when I just did what I felt in my body was right, and that was going to be my future, and it worked out, always worked out beautifully, and that synchronicity, which is awesome.
Yeah, I think that's the way to be for most situations. I think a lot of people don't trust it because there's that fear mindset. And for whatever reason, I didn't have the fear. I was just like ready to go. I had nothing to lose and everything to gain.
It's a good
Um,
spot to be in.
yeah, I was in a good position. I was 27, so I didn't have like too much weighing down on me at the time. And yeah, I just had no fear. I was just ready to go.
Yeah, I was 27 too when I left, and yeah, it's to people outside of me, I feel like they perceived that I had everything to lose, but for me, it was like I'm in such a good spot where I really have nothing to lose and everything to gain, like you said, like just being, at least for me, being in the same spot for my whole life, living with my parents. It was a very beautiful time of my life, but it was also time for a change that I was
Yeah.
craving for my entire life. Really, it was the spontaneity of and the freedom to go out on my own and figure life out. Um,
And from what I remember, you were telling me like you were on this spectrum where everyone was telling you to be, go to school, get the
mm,
degree, do this,
yeah,
and everything will play out in front of you. And you're trying to like align with that, but your intuition didn't want you to be on that path. So you eventually jumped.
yeah. It's funny. Yeah, it was a life carved out for me that wasn't necessarily mine. And at first, I wasn't actually very tuned into that. At first, I kind of went along with it. Um, and no disrespect. I mean, my parents really pushed me for that career, and they set me up very well. So I'm super grateful for all the opportunity that it did give me, the financial freedom early in life, financial stability, I should say, not financial freedom yet, but so yeah, it was a carved out path that I kind of followed because it did offer a lot of what we consider safety and security, good salary, good hours. Well, the hours were debatably good,
Yeah.
night shifts and all that, but good salary. You get the benefits, like all the checks all the boxes that like the middle class like wants to see to be successful in life. Um, and I did have a lot of success in that way, but there came a time where my intuition really was building up to point me in a different direction. And yeah, it was a culmination of a lot in my life of kind of always striving for the future, always living as I was told to live, for better or for worse. And I realized that I need to figure out, I know who I am and I need to just live it and express it and actually embody it. And at that point in my life, I was so fucking ready. Like, I
Yeah.
remember, man, driving. I was locked in. I know that locked in feeling when I remember I hit Pennsylvania. It was a beautiful summer day. The sun was setting, and I took a stop, and I just like had a moment sitting on like this little picnic bench at those like rest stops by the
Yeah.
main highway, and there's like you got the port not the porta potty but the bathroom, and then they got like some picnic tables,
Yeah. A
and I
little
just
eating area. Yeah.
yeah I just sat at the picnic table, and it was the first. I knew at that moment it was the start of the rest of my life, and I was just so grateful to be that free. Um,
That's humbling. Yeah.
yeah,
I feel like being on one path that you were on, it probably create a lot of resistance for you, but you wouldn't be able to appreciate this new path that you're on without it. It's
Absolutely.
all experience and perspective. It gets you to where you're going now. So it's just
Absolutely.
like the mindset of appreciating every moment and just being with it. Knowing like, yeah, we only have, 100 years if we're lucky, but we got a long time and we can take our time to figure shit out, you know?
Yes. Yes, and that's the thing. So, to get things off from my story, because that's for another time, I guess. But I wanted to touch on some other things. Oh man, there was a thread that I wanted to touch on that it slipped my mind. I know you were kind of going through, right? So you
The
came to
jump.
California,
Yeah.
the gym thing happened. All right, so now I remember. So you mentioned you were living out of your car at one point. Was that by choice, or was that kind of like part of the leap of faith where the financial stability wasn't there yet? And if that's the case, what challenges, if any, did arise for you in that kind of ungrounded, I don't want to project, but if that was an ungrounded kind of place, what did that look like for you?
Yeah. So when I first moved to California, I took a job and it was like one of those positions where I had nothing to lose and everything to gain. So when they offered me the job, I turned it down with a counter offer that I didn't think they would accept. And they ended up accepting it. So when I came out, I had a pretty good salary and I had a place to live. I was living with the director who hired me. His apartment had an extra room. I was renting from him. And so I did that for 10 months. And it was this awesome gym that just built a brand new boys gymnastics facility, a competitive gym. And it was kind of unheard of because girls gymnastics is way more popular than boys. So most gyms don't really make that financial investment.
Hmm.
And this one did. I wanted to be a part of it. It was awesome. They hired me on to coach their boys competitive level 5 and then also manage their recreational programs, which had like 12 other coaches that would have been under me and probably about 400 to 500 kids in the program. So to me, it was like, oh, this is great. I've worked for 2 other gyms and both gyms taught me like one area of the company and the other area. And so now moving to California, I can put those 2 job titles together and really test my experience and then head back to Texas when I feel like I've proven myself and start up my company. Because that was always the end goal, was start my own gym. After I was coaching for, I think, 5 years, I made that decision. And so it was pretty comfortable when I got there. It was a lot of work, salary, decent money, but a lot of hours and coaching and traveling to compete. And I did that for about 10 months, made a lot of changes in the gym, created new curriculum, ran staff trainings, and I was really giving it my all. Um, there was two two reasons that it actually didn't work out. First one, the guy who hired me to come coach under him as a boys team coach, he didn't like that I also took on a new role where I was the manager of the recreational program, and we were also living together. And so, with those issues, and then our values not really aligning, we had a lot of like conflicts together, and that that relationship wasn't really working out as far as co-workers and associates. And then the second thing, COVID hit. And so right at COVID, 10 months after holding the position, they ended up laying me off.
Mm.
And it was like I've been laid off 2 times in my life. I was in oil and gas as a pipe inspector. In 2013, I got laid off. It tore me up. I was like 20 years old. I thought I was going to be a pipe inspector, going to go to school and like get all my credentials. Like that was the path that I thought I was on. And when I got laid off, I was so surprised and just like deeply hurt. And that was whenever I stepped into coaching gymnastics because I ran into some friends while I was going through my depression at the bars and a buddy that I hadn't seen in years. He was a coach and he ended up giving me the job. So the first time I got laid off, I transitioned to gymnastics. And then this 7 years later came up and I get laid off in something that I knew I was amazing at. And they blamed it on COVID, but it just didn't align with me. And it's hard to explain. But the way I felt the first time when I was 20, it was completely different than this time. Like I felt fine. I was like, hmm, that's an interesting decision.
Hmm.
Are you sure you want to do that? Like, have you been seeing what's been going on here at this gym? Because I was like, boom, I was part of the community. All the parents saw me working with the kids, and like I was doing a great job. So in the back of my head, I thought it had something to do with the other director, and he and I not really aligning. And he's been there for a while, and he's the one that hired me. All that doesn't really matter, but I just felt okay with it, And so I just got my stuff and I left, and then all of a sudden, families are reaching out to me and conducting like, questions. They're like, "Oh, what's going on? What happened?" I don't know. That's the gym. Ultimately, that brought me into transitioning into my own gym. Like, just because the reasoning behind that didn't make sense. I joke and say if they would have waited a week and when COVID really shut down the country, then nobody would have raised any questions. But they did it a week before that actually happened. And it just raised so many questions that they couldn't answer. Like the parents had like a meeting with the gym owners and they were like, well, we just want to understand why, because this doesn't make sense to us. And they couldn't give them a good reason. And so ultimately, my team that I was training for that 10 months, they all jumped ship and they asked me to find them a new ship to sell off in. And so I got to work and I did that. And then whenever I took on, to answer your question, whenever I took on that role where I was no longer going back to Texas, it's no longer going to open my gym in Texas. I'm staying here in California, which was originally just supposed to be like a 2-year plan. And I was going to lay my roots out. So I'm like, if I take on this, if I own this identity, then I got to give it everything. So that's when I started getting into that sacrifice mindset. We couldn't do anything for about 4 months because like a week after I got laid off, the country shut down. There was nothing going on. So I drove back to Texas and I started up doing Zoom workouts with all the clients and just working out with the kids over that and behind the scenes, working on the business plan. Like, okay, what's this going to look like? How's this going to work? Where are we going to train? I need to network with this gym, and then I found another gym and this gym and see which place has room for us. So whenever I finally got like all that lined up, I decided to work with a certain gym because they were willing to let us rent space, where the other gym wanted to just hire me and take on my program. And I didn't feel good with that. It just seemed like I just took on a job, did a lot of work for them, and then they laid me off. So I was like, no, I'd rather just do this on my own. And if you're not my gym, then I'll go somewhere else. So luckily, I found a place that was willing to rent space for me. And then I started building this camper shell out of the back of my truck, thinking, all right, I'm going to California. I got nowhere to live. I'm just gonna buy a little small twin bed from Walmart, make a frame for it with some drawers, and that's where I'm gonna sleep. So that's what I did. I spent like 6 days building down a small frame. Not a good carpenter at all, but it fit in my truck. It held the bed. I had some room for like pantry stuff and could throw an ice chest in there. And so I drove back, and that's whenever I did that 7-day drive where I was like, oh, I'm going to New Mexico. I'm going to go to Colorado. I'm going to hit up Nevada and Utah. And I camped out along the way. And it was just a very empowering moment where I just felt good about everything that was going on. Like where I should have probably been feeling lousy because I just got fired, but it opened up a whole new door for me that changed my life forever.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't know if it was the mindset or just the circumstances, but it just was, I was on top of a mountain, and I was happy to stay on top of that as long as I can. If that meant sleeping in my truck, then I'll sleep in my truck. If that meant, not having a cell phone, which I don't think I ever had that issue, but whatever came my way, if I had to get rid of it, as long as I could hold my title and be on my mountain peak, then I was going to be happy. And that's what I did. I think I got lucky in a lot of ways, but also because I had that mindset, I think the world kind of just lined things up, new opportunities for me, because I literally only slept in my truck for like a week. And then a buddy had an extra room because someone was moving out and going to another city or whatever. So I just jumped in, and I was able to live with him for like a year and a half. Really, I think I paid maybe $800 a month in rent. So still really low budget. And I just spent all my time doing sales, marketing, creating SOPs, and coaching. And that's all that mattered at the time.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. The mindset thing is everything, because that first layoff, like you said, you were devastated. It was like, from that was your identity almost, and now that your whole world gets turned upside down. But yet at the same time, though, that was one of the many stepping stones that brought you to where you are now. And that second layoff, you had that understanding that, okay, well, I know who I am, I know what I'm worth, and I know what my path is. And if they don't see the value that I know I have in myself, that's okay, because I'll be okay. And
Yeah.
it's funny, you got to just kind of have that curiosity, like, you sure? You sure you want to lay me off?
Yeah.
It's like, all right, bro, I'll do my own thing, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and and the same thing, like that was again the same, another stepping stone to where you needed to be. So yeah, the theme, I guess, is like dropping into that knowing, that trust, that faith. And I don't know, I've been thinking about this for a long time of how I can teach that. I don't want to say teach that, but like, how can I bring that inspiration to others? And I'll try to reverse engineer from my life and look back. And I think honestly, in the deepest part of me, I always knew that there was more. Like life was worth so much more than what I was living. I was worth so much more than what I saw myself as. There was so much more opportunity than what I was allowing for myself. And it's like you said, dropping into the unknown can seem scary, but that is what opens up the opportunity for the magic of life to just flow. And within, like, a year or two, you're in a whole different reality that is so much more in your best interest. And yeah, it's all about
What
having that faith.
what's that saying? Life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all opportunity, it's all perspective, and you just gotta be okay with it. Life's a game. We're having
Yeah.
this human experience, and it's a game. It's supposed to be fun. We hold on to things too long, I believe, and just continuing the path forward, no matter what. I think, in my experience, I don't know if you had mentioned that you're not sure if you can teach this, and I don't think you can teach it. I think it's all experience. You can
Yeah.
share your experiences and how it affected you and change your mindset, but at the end of the day, I think people have to have their own experiences to truly know,
Yeah.
but it's happening for you. Yeah, life is
Yeah.
on your side as long as you are willing to listen and
Mm.
take it with good values. I believe we need to have good values and a good belief system.
Mhm.
But I think there's a lot of successful people out there that might not have, a belief system or values that align with that. But
Yeah.
that is everyone's decision. They can make that up on their own.
Mhm. Mhm. Beautifully said. I'm curious, so that first layoff was pretty rough, like you said, and then, you had, like, I guess, a depressive phase. What kind of pulled you out of that? Or how did you pull yourself out?
Gymnastics.
Mm.
Yeah. So to go in a little bit deeper with the first layoff. So before I even started working in oil and gas, I was going to community college, and so I was on that path, thinking, all right, I got to get my degree. This is what everyone does,
Yeah.
similar to what most people experience. And I think I was pretty lucky in some ways. My parents never really pushed me to do that. I just kind of felt called to doing it on my own. My dad helps me, pay for it. Um, but I was probably not the most disciplined student anyways. I did okay. I did mostly okay on the classes that I went to, and like got to interact with the professor. The online classes, not so much. So I learned a lot about myself on how I learn through that. But I jumped off that path and moved into oil and gas thinking, okay, obviously I'm not gonna get my degree, so I gotta go into the workforce. This is it. Like I have to make this work. And I did it for like a year and 2 months. And so I was dedicated, 20 years old, thinking I had to have everything figured out. I needed to move forward
Yep.
fast, you know. So yeah, it hurt a lot. And what I did at the time to deal with my sorrows, I would go out, I would go party, go to the bars downtown, Houston, and just follow the strip and kind of just bounce around. And through that, that's when I did that probably for like a good week before I ran into this person. But eventually, I ran into a friend that actually I didn't really know that well, but he worked at my grandmother's roller rink when I was little, so I recognized him. And I was like, Jeremy? And he like turned and looked at me and it's like so caught off guard, like, oh shit, who did I piss off? Or like, who knows me? And so like that transaction started the whole process. I'm like, okay, well, I'm hanging out with this guy. Let's go out. Let's go do this. Continue that sorrow thing. Now I have someone, you know, misery loves company. I have someone to be with while I'm going through this miserable time in my life. And he introduced me to a whole core group of people that all coach gymnastics. And I didn't know what my plan was. I was like, I'm going to go to Utah. My buddy lives there. He's in the Air Force. He said I could stay at his place, or I'm going to just work with my dad. Or I didn't really know. I was just bouncing around, and they were like, "Why don't you come to the gym? Come try gymnastics." I'm like, I don't know anything about gymnastics. I never coached gymnastics. Never even have done gymnastics. Uh, and then they convinced me to come in for an interview. And the day I walked into the gym was just it's monumental. I walked in this 40,000 square foot gym and just open. Like as soon as you walk in, it's just all open. You see all the gymnastics going on. I met the director at the time, and he gave me a tour of the facility. And I remember, I don't know if you know what a tumble track is, but it's like a long trampoline. And
Okay.
there's like a 4 foot panel of trampoline, and then there's like a maybe 7, 8 inch like strip of padding. And so we're walking on the padding and going towards this foam pit. And all of a sudden, this little girl, probably like 9 years old, just like jacked, comes trotting up to me. She's like, "Hi, I'm Six Pack." Like, reaches to shake my hand. And I'm looking down, like, you're not supposed to have this much confidence. What's going on? Like, you don't, who gave you permission to come talk to me? Like, it just was so confusing because I've never seen so much confidence in such a young person. And so I'm like, "Oh, I'm Zach. Nice to meet you." And then she trotted off, went back to her gymnastics. And that like clicked for me. Like, oh shit, like this place, it instills confidence. This place is like where I need to be. Like, because I was lacking in confidence. And I took the job for $13 an hour. And I started on my first day, and the director came up to me. He's like, "Actually, we can't pay you $13 an hour because you have no experience, so we can only pay you 10." And I was like thinking I should just leave. That was a sign for me to leave, but I was like, okay, whatever, that's fine. So I stayed on, and I'm glad I did. Obviously, you know where I am now. Hindsight's 2020, but yeah, it was just a good place for me to be in because I could be surrounded by positivity. You know,
Oh yeah,
working with kids is always positive, and the coaches there were literally community role models.
that's awesome. Yeah, I'm actually glad you touched on that. Well, first of all, I didn't even know that. I figured that gymnastics was something that was like a big part of your life for a long time. Um, so that's really cool to hear. Um, but yeah, one of the things that I've in hindsight in my journey, looking back on like what helped me really get into a good place was the physical act, like a physical hobby that like gets you moving and it instills confidence in a way that it's hard to describe. It just getting your body moving and exercising and honing your craft and getting better and better and reaping the dopamine rewards in a healthy way
100%.
um gives you that confidence. And it's I think there have been studies showing it is about the dopamine pathway, like because our our drive, our instinct drive is to like get food to survive. And so when we get it, we get the dopamine hit. And so it's rewarding. and obviously that gets hijacked with social media, scrolling, and alcohol, casual sex, whatever. Like, so there's an unhealthy way to go about it. But yeah, um, exercise has brought me, honestly, has brought me closer to God. Um, and I'm sure that rings very much true to you. Um, for me, it was mountain biking and just being out in nature all the time, especially during COVID when the world was going crazy. I was like, I'm good. Just go out and bike all the time and just soak in the nature, get better at my craft, exercise. So yeah, seems like that's very much what happened with you is that
Yeah,
confidence.
I got lucky and was being paid to do it. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, it's hard to get in the gym sometimes, but
yeah,
once you get in, even if you just do one workout, you're on it. You're already
yeah,
ahead of the game. You know, and becoming consistent with that is, I think, what everyone's goal should be, um,
yeah,
because it does connect you more with God and with yourself. And that's the God within, you know, and it Yeah, I think I'm very lucky to have a job that kind of keeps me in an active lifestyle. I
yeah.
was already pretty active. Matter of fact, like when I was in oil and gas, it was just a warehouse. We were pipe inspectors and we'd just like refurbish stuff and like send it out to the pipe yard and ship it out. So like I was working night shift, 12-hour shifts, you know, driving forklifts around, piping, and rolling pipe. But whenever it was on downtime, like I was breakdancing out in that like middle area, and they have this overhead crane that would go across the warehouse if you had to pick up a pipe, and you control it through a remote. So I would like wear the remote on my neck. I'd grab onto the crane and I'd like move myself across the warehouse. So I should have got fired way earlier before I actually did. Uh, but yeah, looking back, I'm like, I'm in the exact job I'm supposed to be in because I've always been this active person
Yeah,
and I love like that lifestyle. And what's better than having a career that fits your lifestyle?
perfect. Yeah. Yeah, the mind, the body, and the spirit are one. So like whatever you do to help the health of the body, you're helping your mind, you're helping your spirit grow.
Yeah.
Um, awesome. I appreciate that with the forklift. I used to work back little side. I used to work in a grocery store in the back room, well, back and front room, but yeah, there was all these forks left, and I definitely was very reckless, and I should have probably got fired too. I remember one time, and this was just I took the jack and I went a little too, I guess, aggressive with it, knocked into a bunch of pallets right as my manager walked in. And
Oh,
I
nice.
think he kind of has seen that I was a little erratic, and I guess that was the final straw because he was like, "Brandon, you gotta stop doing that." And I just looked at my colleague and I was like, he yelled at me, and like he's like the nicest guy and he never yells. But
Oh man, yeah. You push him to his
yeah,
line.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
those
know.
forklifts, they're touchy, dude. Like
You
I drove a huge one. It's a 5 ton, and
oh
I was out in the pipe yard, and everyone else was like just working in the warehouse. And so I was cruising around. I was having some fun. And when it was time to go back in, I had to drive the forklift into the warehouse. And it's like a big bay, like garage. What I forgot to do was lower the forks. And so like I'm
oh
cruising in and the forks are up and all you hear is just, and
oh
I'm like, oh shit. And I looked like, oh shit. So I lowered the forks down, tried to sneak in, and everybody heard it. Everybody was walking in. And you see this huge dent in the freaking garage. And I'm just like, I'm fired. This is
yeah.
which I didn't get fired. And I worked there for another 6 months. So I don't know if they were keeping track of all that. But
Hey,
it
shit
was
happens. Shit
yeah,
happens,
shit happens.
man.
My supervisor was just like pretty much that. He's like, shit happens.
Yeah.
Lower the forks next time. Well, that's how you learn. You know, you're young and you're reckless. And you have
Yeah.
experiences that kind of slow you down. You know, think a little bit before you act.
Yeah. I mean, there is value in that for sure. I mean, yeah, I was around the same age, 20, 19 years old, 19, 20 years old, and just yeah, you tend to be a little reckless at that age, and especially with heavy machinery. You're like, oh, this is so
As you
fun.
should. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, we played Batonka trucks when we were kids.
Yeah.
That's what we're supposed to do.
Cool, man. Um, wow, so that's great. So yeah, I mean, we've been talking about a lot of different things, but yeah, I mean, at the heart of it all is getting in touch with intuition and following that. You could say from an esoteric standpoint, that's the more like feminine side of life, which is so important for men too, because our archetype is more physically focused, which is our role as men. But also, if we're sort of closed off to the unseen realm, um, then that's a challenge, and you're gonna have a hard time in life. And that's kind of the message of this podcast, and you're a perfect guest to kind of touch on that. Um, I do want to get into a couple more things. Well, yeah, could you? How did What was the story of how you and Kaylee met, and how did that pan out, and how did you kind of follow your intuition, and how did you know she was the one for you?
Yeah, I don't know if like the human brain just like develops these stories in
Yeah,
our head and we make it like a meant to be kind of thing, but it kind of felt like one of those moments. It was like a meant to be moment. We met online on a dating app, Hinge. Highly recommend it. They're not paying me to share it, but Hinge was awesome. I wasn't having any luck in the Bay. Like I was going on dates and talking to people, but not really connecting with anyone. And a couple times, like they didn't really look like their profile, and so
yeah,
I would
yeah,
go back and forth, like having the app, deleting the app, having the app, deleting the app, and then finally, like, I mean, oh, I wanted companionship, so I'm like, all right, I'm not going out, busy working, kind of like moved past that stage in my life. It's COVID, so like there's not really much going on. Who's going out right now? So
yeah,
everyone's on dating apps. So finally, like I just thought I wasn't having any luck because of me. So I took a course on like how to set up my dating app, and it taught me how to like set up disqualifiers and just different attributes about
oh,
myself to have a more attractive profile. And when I did that within a week, I ended up meeting Kaylee, and we talked for a good like 2 weeks before we ever actually met up. But the weird thing about it was she was outside my radius, I was outside her radius. When you start your app, you can like set a radius of who you want to like meet. And I'm in the Bay, so I set it for like 20 miles, and she was all the way out in Auburn. So when we discovered that, I was like, crap, like she's an hour and a half away,
huh.
but I'd already been talking to her and I felt like pretty connected. Like I got to at least go meet her. And so I took a drive out to Auburn to meet her, and we went on a hike and connected deeply. And after that, there was no question about it. Like I was
Yeah,
driving back and forth nonstop just to kind of get to know her. And then eventually she came out to Lafayette in the Bay. And, she met my roommate, buddy who had a house that I was telling you about. And we had added a second roommate in by then. But so we just started kind of showing each other who we were, and it was great. Lit up like wildfire, and we moved in together within like 3 months, I think. There were some
yeah,
driving forces to like allow
yeah,
that to happen, but
yeah,
that's what happened.
yeah. Well, when it's aligned like that, it, it it's not too fast. I mean, the timeline it's very subjective. Like 3 months moving in, some people might be like, "Wow, that's really fast." You sure? But like when it's lined up that way, it's just seems like second nature, like
Yeah, we were on
no
the
brainer.
same page in life. We
Yeah,
were preparing to move into the next chapter at the same time, so this all that was it just made sense. It was natural.
yeah, that's interesting that it happened with Hinge because I went on Hinge one time and I deleted it, and I think I'm doing the same thing that you were doing wrong. I guess like, doing wrong, but like I don't know. I just wasn't setting up I just like can't be bothered when I'm setting up the profile. I'm like, oh, what picture should I choose? What should I write? And so I don't know. I kind of got into my head with that, but
Well, I
I
bet you know the power of like literature, right? Writing and
yeah,
manifesting.
yeah,
Well, I think because I took the time to truly like
mm,
put down what I wanted, what I was looking for, and how I wanted to be seen, it
yeah,
like it helped manifest that. And on top of that, it's Kaylee's story, so I'm not going to share it, but I'll give you a small
yeah,
snippet. She like journals a lot, and she was kind of in a similar point in life too, where she was like kind of like giving up, thinking that her person wasn't really out there, and she took some type of course. And it basically what she took from was like she needs to write out every single thing on paper, like what
Mm.
she's looking for in a partner. And she did that. And then literally that's whenever we kind of started connecting. And she claims that I fit her description perfectly, but I'm sure there's a few areas in there that she should have been more specific on.
That's hysterical. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what avenue. I mean, you just have to be lined up with yourself and what you want. And that's what that's what I've been leaning into more and more, and what my intuition tells me to lean more and more in is I'm actually glad you brought that up. I've been meaning to get more clear, and
Yeah.
writing is something that I do hear every now and then. I'll journal, but I think setting the intention to journal more will help with that.
Yeah, I'm
For
trying to be
sure.
more intentional with it myself.
Yeah.
Every time I have carried a journal, like it.
All right, we had some technical difficulties, but we're back. Um, you kind of cut out what you were saying about you've had journals before. You kind of were getting to a point on that.
Yeah, so the gym I worked at in Texas right before I moved to California, he actually bought me a journal and like encouraged me to write down my thoughts. I was his tumbling director, and then moved into his gymnastics and tumbling director over time. And I think he just encouraged me to be efficient and just, he's a very spiritual guy, Christian man. And yeah, that was a little gem that he gave me. And I took to it like he was a mentor. So I was like, all right, I'm on it. I got you. So I was like journaling. I filled up probably like three journals while I was working for him.
Wow.
And then when I moved to California, I fell off of it for a while. And then over the span of then to now, I've journaled a little bit, but truly when I was dedicated to it, I think that had a huge part in what I've been provided and what I'm able to achieve.
Yeah, it's I always undervalue the value of it, because I go through phases too where I'll do it like almost every night, and then like recently I kind of dropped off, and it's so powerful because just the act of writing it down, even if you're never going to look at it again, it's not really the point. Just writing it down in the moment helps separate you from your thoughts, and it helps you see it in a broader perspective, and then you
Well,
kind
it
of get
lets
in,
the universe know.
yeah, you get in touch with um what you're feeling, what's going on within you, more clearly when you're just writing down what happened the day, what you're looking toward, or anything. I mean, yeah, it's a super powerful practice. I need to set the intention to be more consistent with it for sure.
It's funny. It's like God gives us the secret to the universe,
Yeah.
yet we're humans. So we're just like, oh, it'll be there when I need it later on. We don't like fully appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, it happens time and time and again where life bogs you down, and then your mind takes over, like, oh, it's not that important. You got this to do, you got that to do. Um, just go to bed and forget about it. It
Yeah,
happens all the time to me.
yeah.
And it's like,
It's a process.
it's
It's
a
a
process.
journey, and first step is acknowledging it.
Yes. Yes. Awesome. Awesome. Well, I just want to touch on I know when we connected a couple weeks ago talking about the show, you I told you the name, and it's, oh, the podcast is called Wondering Where the Lions Are. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, funny enough. And I see it in the
I
background
put them out
there.
here just because of that. Yeah.
I we did not plan this. You cannot make this shit up, people. This is
Yeah.
tell us about it.
Yeah, so I see myself as a lion, like that's my spirit animal. And the background on that, it hasn't always been that way. I have a tattoo of Yosemite, like the redwoods, and like a wolf howling at the moon. I always thought like I was a lone wolf, and
Mm,
that was my spirit animal. But there's been multiple times in my life where I've actually been receiving downloads or messages from like the lion spirit. Like one time when I was like 17, I did shrooms with a buddy, and we had like a fun run. And at the end of the night, we went on our own separate path and went into my bedroom. And I was just kind of sitting there and felt called to go into the bathroom and like splashing water on my face. And I just remember so vividly doing that and looking up myself, and I looked like a young lion.
yeah.
And this is before I had long hair and a beard. I was 17, and it just that was just the trip that was going on in front of me. And I just felt confident, felt courageous, and ready to take on the world the next day. Like
Yeah, yeah.
truly just very vivid. And the next day I did. I had an amazing take to the day. I went after it. And I think eventually that kind of died down and got back into my ego and my normal day to day, you
Yeah.
know.
It's
And
always
then
an up and down, peak and valley journey. Yeah.
yeah, and just multiple times throughout my life till now, like I've just had experiences like that. Now twice on shrooms. I did take, a more ceremonial um, experience with a buddy and Kaylee, and we were just all sitting under the stars and just kind of like watching the galaxy. And we were talking about archetypes earlier, and I
Mm.
was starting to see everyone's archetype.
Mhm.
And Kaylee was a lioness,
Mm.
and my buddy, he was like this Martian from another planet. He knew so much and like has experienced everything. And like he's one of my favorite people in the world. And I was just like looking at him thinking, yeah, this guy's from another planet for sure. you know. But I woke up that night or that morning thinking like feeling my archetype is very lion spirited. Uh, it just kept being called in a lot of ways to that. And I finally decided to take on that identity, and it's been good. I like it. It's been a good feeling, you know.
Yeah. The the lion archetype is very fitting for the message of this podcast because you know, uh, the lion, it's like you said before, courage and authenticity and self-assuredness. And that comes in many forms too. It's not just like a ferocious beast that we think of like a lion is. No, when you look at lions, they're majestic. Like they're graceful creatures, and they, for the most part, if they're not chasing an animal, if they're not in their predator mode, they're just very graceful with their movement. They're very calm, very centered, very still, and majestic and royal. And that's kind of masculinity that I know to be true is like what is the true archetype of masculinity. It's not about what we typically deem as alpha, although it can be assertive when necessary. But it's also getting in touch with, like I said, the intuitive side of life. And that is what some people might refer to as a more feminine approach to life. But in any man or woman, you need to have some sort of degree of integration and coherence with those two dualities. So yeah, that's awesome that you are
Yeah,
right there with it, and that you're like, oh yeah, I see myself as a lion. Here it is. I'm like, oh
absolutely.
well, here they are. I'm wondering where the lions are. Here's one right
And
here, Zach
there we
Stevens.
go. That's right. And another thing I'd like to add that I learned, lions, they're pride animals. Like
Yeah.
they call them a pride, like they're pack animals, but they live in a pride of lions. And me and Kaylee actually went to Africa for a honeymoon,
Yes.
and we got to see two prides of lions. And the
Wow.
cool thing about it was there were multiple male lions to one pride. I'm sure there was like a head lion. There's definitely a hierarchy there, but
Yeah.
they were living within that pride together, and it kind of like reminded me of my wolf spirit. And I know they're pack animals too, but I always saw myself as a lone wolf. And now when I took on the new identity of the lion, like knowing that like we're pride, like animals, like it just puts me more in line with having a community, having
Yes.
a group of people
Mm.
that bounce ideas back and forth like this
Yeah.
and push each other and accomplish together. You don't have to do everything on your own. Where I used to think no one can do it the way I do it, so I'm just going to do it. Like that was a hard programming I think that my father gave me at a young age,
Mm.
because he's very much that way, very high achieving person, but he never took on that pride mentality and gave those tasks to other people. And so that's just something that I decided that I didn't want to like have in my programming anymore, and
Yeah.
bringing on more people to make the mission even bigger is the new identity. Yeah, and I got that from looking at a pride of lions.
That's a beautiful paradox of how you just described of the pride is actually letting go of all about me and doing it myself. The pride is actually the community. Um, wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I'm glad you shared that.
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, this has been a great conversation. I'll just leave it with that. Do you have anything else you want to kind of touch on or add, or you feel
I'm
complete?
I feel complete, and I'm
Yeah.
happy that we finally made this happen,
Yeah.
and I think I think we should do it again. I
Yeah.
think we should definitely catch up and continue this conversation because I believe we're both on this journey and we're both accomplishing a lot. And I'm never going to be the person that's like, all right, I'm here and that's where I'm at. I'm this
Yeah.
spiritual being and here it all lies out before you. I'm always going to be trying to climb up more. And so if we continue to meet periodically, I think we can both share a little bit more each time.
Yeah. That's what I was just going to touch on is, I was going to kind of ask you where you're going, where you see yourself going forward, but, we can kind of just save that for when we touch base again and leave it at
Yeah.
that. I like that. I
Yeah,
feel complete.
absolutely. I
Wondering where
appreciate
the
you,
lines
Brandon.
are. Yeah. Zachary Stevens, everyone. Great dude. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Take care, everyone.